So in today's video, I'm going to cover two videos that are the same exact thing in principle, but the only thing that's different about them is you have a man and a woman doing the selecting. So basically the videos are a man or a woman sits in a circle of 20 guys or 20 girls, and they have to list out a couple of guidelines in order to separate or sift out the amount of men and try to narrow down one partner of which they can try to select one and have a date with. And if not one partner, at least have multiple options. So you're trying to whittle down from 20 guys into, I guess, maybe 2, 3, 4, 5, I don't know. One, I guess, would probably be the most ideal, so that way, like, you don't end up having to choose between two different people. But the basic principle is they sit in a circle, they're in the center of a circle, and with their cell phone, they list out a couple of guidelines in a group chat and tweet out what guidelines that they have and what are deal breakers that they need in order to have a relationship. So what we're going to do now is first start off with the young lady, and she's really going to highlight exactly what are the problems with the 80-20 rule and why it is so devastating for young ladies when they're trying to date. And then when we're done analyzing her options, we're going to compare and contrast them to the guidelines that the young man made and right afterwards. So she's going to take us away.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping not to continue this pattern of very, very bad men.
Now, one thing I'm going to highlight is just literally from the offset, she already acknowledges that she's had a pattern of really bad men. We're going to keep this in mind, my friends. We're going to keep this in the back of our heads. It's going to become important later in the video.
I love to dance, so I don't like it when I'm with somebody who's a total Debbie Downer or boring and just kind of stands there and doesn't want to dance.
Now, the first thing I'm going to highlight here is what we start off with. The very first guideline our young lady puts off to us is not one of the functionality of a relationship, but one that purely exists to really highlight how she feels emotionally. We get to see clear view that her decision making is again based in just how she feels or how her partner is going to make her feel. She says she likes to dance. She likes to not be around someone that makes her feel bad, a Debbie Downer. Now, this actually doesn't really have much to do with the functionality of a relationship. I mean, sure, it's pretty obvious that you don't want to be with someone that's really depressing. However, someone liking to dance doesn't really add or subtract from any type of romantic relationship. It's purely a guideline that exists for her, just so she likes to feel good about, well, partying. Because the second thing I want to highlight is that even though she says she likes to dance, what she was really saying is she likes to party, as we see in the text message that she puts, and even indicates that she likes to drink a lot, which is actually two interesting qualities or traits or actions that she is doing that's actually not going to be conducive at all in helping her find a reasonable person to date. Because if she's drunk, her inhibitions are lowered, and if she's only partying, then she's only going to find people who are interested in partying, not really people who are interested in forming, you know, long-term relationships. Again, it's a quality, or again, it's a guideline that's based solely in her validation or solely in just the emotions she feels, rather than any functionality in a long-term relationship.
I would definitely want someone open-minded but not a freak. So you shouldn't be into feet, but you know, a little chopping's a little fun. Well, you know.
There's not really much to say about the whole sexuality thing, mostly because, you know, I mean, I guess she's not really asking for the most extensive of things. I mean, sure, getting choked is a odd proclivity that I could analyze and talk about, but I feel like it goes well beyond the scope of this video, so I'm not going to. So we're just kind of going to gloss over that one. But I do think actually we can probably bring it up later, because I do think it is an interesting point. I'll bring it up later, don't worry.
I do like them tall because I'm pretty tall for an Asian girl, and when I put on my heels, I would like to still be shorter than Mama Ann. So they need to be, I think, at least 5'11", but I prefer like 6 feet tall.
Now, again, your height has not much at all to do with the functionality of a relationship. It is again purely addressing her ego or her emotional state. She just wants to feel shorter or feel protected, I guess you could say. I mean, that's pretty much what she's trying to say when she wants a tall guy. But asking for someone that's like 5'11" or 6 foot, especially in America, is asking for literally probably less than 5% of the male population. Most people actually are not that tall, or as tall as, like 6 foot tall and taller than that. Now, I am among one of the few in the proud that can boast that they're that tall, but like we are a minority. There's really no way around that. So literally just on the opposite of the 80-20 rule, we can see clear as day that just that one trait alone has already subtracted a vast amount of it. So like 95%. It's so much. It's just crazy. Just crazy the amount of men that have literally just get discounted. And in fact, you're going to see something happen right now. As you could clearly see, with quite literally one guideline alone, she literally wiped out half of the selecting pool. But it keeps going, my friends. She'll take us away.
I would not want to be with somebody who wants kids within 7 years. Kids, I've been an aunt since I was 10, so I'm like a natural around babies and kids. But I want to really just share a love with somebody that's so great, and it's all about loving each other before we can, bring somebody else in the world. I think you should be mentally stable as well, financially stable, because you're going to be responsible for shaping their future. It's kind of a big pressure because you could really fuck somebody up in the head if you're not there, and I take that really seriously.
Now, this is actually one of the first guidelines that can actually be discussed, I would say, intelligently. One thing that I do appreciate is the fact that she does take the idea of raising children very seriously, as people really should. A lot of people don't, but they should. So this is actually a really point to her credit. The only problem here really is the forcible timeline she's created. Like, she's created the timeline of waiting 7 years. And considering the fact that she'll reveal that she's 26 in just a second, she's really pushing back really far, kind of more of the most reasonable age at which you should start reproducing. Like, a woman can obviously get pregnant up to her 30s, but the older a woman usually gets, the harder and harder it becomes for her to conceive. So she's really kind of narrowing down and the most healthy time for her to really start, conceiving and making children. So it's still reasonable for her to think critically about, forging a strong relationship before she brings in children, which is really great, and, kudos to her. But I think she's kind of waited a little too long to really keep that guideline. If she was younger, like around 19 to maybe 21, waiting up until her late 20s, that would be a lot more reasonable. But getting into her early 30s and then probably later than then, based on what's going to happen at the conclusion of this video, probably isn't going to help her out in particular. So for younger women, it's certainly a reasonable thing. But as a woman gets older, it starts to become less and less of an option for her, just based on the limitations of biology. Not really so much her not being able to find a man that will raise children with her, but literally just the limitations of her body will start kicking in.
You know what? I have a younger brother, and anybody younger than me, I just automatically think of my brother, so. Like, they could be the hottest person in the room, and if they tell me they're even a month younger than me, I'm just like, oh, I just see my brother, and it's like, ugh.
And there it is, my friends. One of the most unreasonable guidelines one could ever make. So much so that literally just existing in life literally dwindles down the amount of eligible suitors that you have. Literally just literally as the years go by. And one thing that's interesting still that I'll find, 2 for 2 here, is that 2 of the guidelines that the lady put literally are things that are just totally out of the control of the men in question, which I think more than anything highlights the problem with the 80-20 rule. She's literally just discounted a man who's a month younger than her, which logically doesn't even reasonably make sense to see that person as her brother, because, I mean, unless her brother is an alien, the nigga didn't develop in 1 month. So at the most, her brother has to be at least 9 months younger than her, and then even more than that. I mean, you know, there's still the actual age difference, that is, however long it took for her mom and dad between the time she was born. I mean, and you can go logically explain it. You know, the long and short of it is, you know, saying that you're not going to date someone who's 4 months younger than you because you have a younger brother is unreasonable to the umpth degree, so much so that it's, again, really highlights to show that her decision making is based on how she feels more so than anything rational, reasonable, or even functional in terms of relationship. Even if a guy ended up being, say, you know, what, 5 years younger than her, say he's like 21, he could still be a really good partner to be with her. But because the nigga's younger, well, he just doesn't make her feel good, or, you know, feel the way she wants, feel validated enough, so he's gone. And we're going to see what happens based on that guideline right now.
Would not date my brother.
You're gonna be single for a while.
That was rude.
So now that we've seen that her guidelines have literally left her with 0 out of the 20 men in question, we're going to compare and contrast that to the man who will do the same exact experiment. He's going to take us away.
Definitely prefer girls who have been in a relationship before, or at least maybe a long-term relationship, because they really kind of know what it's like to be in a relationship, and starting something new with somebody who's never had that is a lot harder.
Now, notice something very interesting about this. Literally, the very first thing that he put was all about the functionality of a relationship. Literally, the very first thing that he said is more so geared towards how he's going to function in a long-term relationship with someone that has experience rather than someone that doesn't have any experience. Comparing and contrast that to the lady's very first point, which was just, I like having fun and dancing and drinking and partying. Literally, their mindsets are just in two completely different places. And it's very interesting for me to see how, well, you see the result of his guideline in just a second.
Honestly, fair. Wow. Okay. Knocked a lot of them out.
Literally, half of the ladies present never had a long-term relationship, which honestly I was not expecting that harsh of a result to happen, and I don't really blame him for that one, because I do think that his guideline is pretty reasonable, at least in terms of its functionality. That being said, though, if he were to lax it, if he were to say that, you know, he'll actually put in the effort of trying to teach someone to be in a long-term relationship with them, or experience that with them, I guess he'd literally still have 20 women to choose from. So, we're just going to keep going. He'll take us away.
Ethnicity-wise, I have zero preference. I genuinely find beauty in like any race, you know, or culture or anyone. But when it comes to like physical attributes, I definitely prefer girls who are either a couple inches taller than me or shorter. I don't mind it when a girl is a little bit taller than me, but if it's over like 2 inches maybe, I'd feel a little bit weird.
The hilarity of this guideline in question, though, is the fact that it's more of a comfortability thing than it really is something that's incredibly harsh. Particularly most young ladies, actually the average height for most women in America is probably around 5'4", if I remember correctly. So most women actually will hardly ever hit up that 5'10" or like 5'11" range. Now me personally, like, I mean, tall girls are probably as close to perfect as you can get, but like, That's just me personally. I actually can understand why he wouldn't want to date a woman that's like taller than him, because I'm pretty sure he, and more than anyone else, or any man for that matter, kind of understands women themselves are not really too keen on dating people that are shorter than them. If anything, he seems more like he was trying to preemptively avoid the whole height issue thing, rather so it's actually something that bothers him. I mean, I would imagine that, you know, if he found a girl who was like 6'4" and she would date a like shorter guy, it probably wouldn't bother him too much. I would assume, now fully realizing I could be wrong there. But we're gonna continue.
Fair. Cool. I don't like it when girls believe in horoscopes, which is like the weirdest thing ever. But I hate it when someone's like, oh, I'm a Libra. I don't think we'd click. The moons aren't aligned for this month, so we can't really, you know, get boba because we wouldn't click. I hate that shit.
Now, at first glance, this seems really silly and just kind of out there. But I do want you to take stock of what he actually said about why he doesn't like it when women are into horoscopes. What he's actually saying is he doesn't want anything that is frivolous and silly to affect how the relationship will work. In other words, he doesn't want someone to discount him because of some silly horoscope crap. He wants to be taken for who he is as a person by his own merits, rather than being discounted by something as silly as the stars don't align, or, you know, you were born in a different month, so apparently, you know, you function differently as people. You know, all that jazz, all that bullshit. Basically, again, his guideline is more guided towards the functionality of a relationship rather than how it makes him feel as a particular person. It's more about him actually being able to be in the relationship with the person. Because again, if based on what he said himself, the woman himself would reject him offhand because, you know, he's the wrong sign or whatever. I don't know astronomy or astrology. Whatever, nigga, you know. Continue.
God's good, man. Fuck. Okay. I like girls who are into the arts and like creative arts. So people who are already down that path when we start dating, love studying arts or you know, anything within that field. Career-wise, that's something to talk about, you know? I can't talk about accounting because I don't know shit about accounting. So definitely like someone who aligns within my interests within the arts, whether that be music, physical, painting, acting, camera, whatever.
Now again, my friends, notice how the guideline is once again dedicated towards the functionality of a relationship and the personality of the woman in question. The reason why he's asking for someone who is into the arts is because he wants to date someone that has similar interests with him so he can talk to them and interact with them on a near equal basis. If not equal, at least on an interesting basis so he can learn more about them and have something to share and talk about. Which is something that the lady actually never really even addressed or even came close to in her guidelines. He's gonna keep going.
Sorry. Hi, nice to meet everyone. Sorry, I'm Matoki. Suzanne, nice to meet you. Nice, Julia. Okay, nice to meet you. Ade, nice to meet you.
I'm Julia.
Julia, nice to meet you. Heather, nice to meet you guys. Funny responses. That was fun.
And so at the end of it all, our friend Matoki is left with 5 young ladies to choose from and try to forge a relationship with. Honestly, if I was him, I'd probably pick out Pocahontas right there. You guys know Pocahontas. You know who she was. I'd probably pick her because, I mean, like, if she is actually Native American, you know, there's only like 7 of them left. So, you know, you gotta, you know, take what you can get. I'm joking. She probably wasn't even Native American. So the point is, what's interesting here, you'll notice, all joking aside, is that based on his guidelines, he's actually left with ladies to pick from. And if his first guideline wasn't as harsh as it was, which wasn't really even all that harsh, it just kind of seemed ipso facto to be, you know, kind of had a effect I don't even think he was, you know, expecting. In fact, he kind of says so right here.
I was surprised at how many people had not been in a long-term relationship. Maybe I was too specific on my dates, but that was kind of interesting, just like, you know, from the get-go.
Imagine if his first guideline had been like probably anything else, he probably would have ended that circle up with probably maybe more than even half of the ladies to choose from. And that's one of the most interesting things that you can see between men and women. You'll notice that when the woman was setting up her guidelines, next to none of them even began to address the personalities of the men or even anything that dealt with the functionality of a relationship working out well. But you'll notice with him, most of his guidelines, all with the exception of one, and that being, the height thing, was all geared towards how they're going to interact as people and how they're going to work together in a relationship. And maybe not specifically how they'll work together, but at least the experience that entails being with someone for a long time. Totally blew my mind. No, it didn't. It didn't blow my mind at all. I mean, I kind of expected something like this to occur, but actually seeing it happen in real time, I think, is what is really eerie and will really open up the eyes of a lot of people. Now, I totally understand that it may not be completely reasonable to use one man and one woman to accurately reflect all of males and women. Like, I really get that, but I still do think that it is important to use these two videos because they kind of clearly show in real time the disadvantage of how women operate when it comes to the 80-20 rule, and just kind of the huge advantage a lot of men have. Well, I don't know if it's an advantage, but a strength that men have, if you will. And that is, what we've seen with a lot of women, or this lady in particular, is she literally discounted 28 eligible suitors, all based on a bunch of frivolous criteria. The only one that wasn't really frivolous was her, waiting 7 years to have children, but that's more of a problem again. That's more a race against biology than it really is something that these men could control. Again, a lot of the criteria are based on something that the men can control. One being time, well actually two being time, waiting 7 years to have children, and the other one being just being born before she was. Another thing that they just couldn't control was just their height. Yeah, sure, maybe you could fake it so much so that you enjoy dancing and partying, but honestly, those are not really traits that are conducive to having a relationship, because if you're dating someone, it doesn't make sense to go out to a bar and dance with lots of different people if you catch me drift. So it really just kind of goes to show you guys again in real time that the 80-20 rule literally is making a lot of women discount men, not even for reasonable things, but just silly bullcrap, just silly stuff that is just not even conducive to creating a functional relationship that's actually going to help them be happy in the long term. But one of the inherent strengths that a lot of men have, maybe fortunately or unfortunately, is because men are generally attracted to women as an end. A lot of the times men end up having more options of women to date because men just like women. Now, one thing that you'll find interesting is when the lady in question had talked about her sexual kinks, you'll notice that some of the guys were actually a bit uncomfortable, but were willing to stay because they found that trying to be in a relationship with her was more important than them being somewhat uncomfortable for a couple of times. And maybe some of them just never even had the idea of choking a woman while having sex with her, so they were just taken aback. Again, it's a point to show that a lot of women are really interested in the woman as an end rather than a bunch of frivolous stuff that surrounds her. Another important thing of note about the young lady's video is you'll notice how it starts, and if you watch the original you'll see how it ends. So this is actually how her video ends.
How many guys did you think would be left?
I thought there would be maybe 4 guys left, but there were none. So today I learned that my criteria is not, I guess, easy as I thought it was. But I'm okay with that because I don't, these are values and things that I don't want to bend and change right now, so. I used to really beat myself up in my past relationships after they ended because I felt like I wasn't good enough. But I think I'm at a place in my life right now where I know what I want and there's nothing wrong with having these standards. You shouldn't have to bend your values and what you want to please somebody else.
Now, remember when I said that the opening statement she made will become important later? Well, this is what I mean. She has no self-awareness, my brothers, my sisters. And this is the reason why I try to make videos like this, to try to help people gain the self-awareness that they are sincerely lacking. And that is, she doesn't even realize that the guidelines that she's making are exactly what has led her to the pattern of bad men she's dating. Her guidelines do not work towards the function of a relationship. They don't even work towards even the happiness, the frilly happiness people talk about when they say love, when they really just mean validation from another person. They don't even work towards that. Again, they're just all about just trying to make her feel good about her, or they're all based in something that's just silly and frivolous. And this is why this video needs to exist, my friends, or videos like this need to exist in order to bring forth the issue that you're dealing with so you can address it. Again, it's literally her her complete lack of self-awareness that has led her lonely even still and into all of the bad men, or the pattern of bad men that she doesn't even realize that she created for herself. And I think I'm going to end the video right here. Hopefully I have given you guys something critical to think about when it comes to 80-20 rule. And if I did, man, I certainly hope you guys go ahead and click the like button. And shoot, go ahead and click that subscribe button. Comment in the comment box below. And as always, you guys have yourselves a great day. And I'll see you cool cats soon. Adios.